Hello, BookTube. This is a continuation of my 2024 library tour. In this episode, I'm doing part two of the literature section of my collection, by which I have usually referred to this as classics, canonical, modern, and contemporary fiction, poetry, and drama. Which, to be perfectly honest, I think is likely what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to jump over to this bookcase over here in the hall. I have two bookcases, and for some reason, I have this collection sort of like this, which I'm planning on changing it in the future to where it'll go all here and then move to here. And if you're wondering about up here, I have the boxes of doom, which will eventually house most likely a lot of science fiction and fantasy. Anyway, so I begin as I ended part one with poetry. This is All American Poem by Matthew Dickman, which I will have it out with at some point. I haven't succeeded yet, but I will. And the same goes for his twin brother Michael and The End of the West. Sometime I will have it out with him. This is Wonderama by Catherine Doughty. This is an okay collection. Not one of my favorites, but it's okay. The next two are by Mark Doughty. This is Source, which is the first collection of his that I read. And I remember it a lot more fondly from the past than I do with my recent reread. And I also have a selected collection of his work, Fire to Fire, which is quite good, even though it did give me some issues the first time I had to go at it. Next is The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. Have never gotten around. Well, I had to go at it and didn't last too long. But I might have another one at it at some point. This is A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan, which is a collection of linked short stories that are not terribly good. This is The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot, which I've had several goes at. Most recently for the last October I tried to participate in, and the flood can take all of them. Maybe I should try Middlemarch, but I don't know. So the next two are by Bret Easton Ellis. This is his first Less Than Zero, which I've had a few goes at, and I want to like his work, I just don't. And I also have The Rules of Attraction, which I wish I had a different edition than this one. But anyway. Next is Ducks in Newburyport by Lucy Ullman, which I picked up for that 10 Contemporary Classics I Must Spell Redeem, because this was, I think, featured on Steve Donahue's list, and yeah, it has still defeated me. Well, I guess it still just doesn't. I guess I don't really have the patience to put up with it for too long. Next, we return to poetry with Claude Before Time and Space by Claudia Emerson. Didn't particularly care for this collection. Next is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, which, surprisingly, I liked. Although, I think it was just okay. It's not something I'm going to ever reread. I don't think. Next, we have a trio by Percival Everett. Erasure, which I had to go at earlier this year and did not get on with. I do not know if I will ever have a go at Telephone. And I had to go at The Trees and really did not like it at all. Next is two by William Faulkner. both of which I have read. As I Lie Dying, which I remember quite fondly. It's been a long time since I've read this, although I am planning on reading it in August, for Faulkner in August. And I might also include it into one of my reading projects, which I will talk about at some point. Actually, I'll probably already talk about it before you see this video. And this is The Sound and the Fury, which I liked it when I first read it, but my recent read of it, not so much, which is kind of typical for me. Next are two collections by Edward Field. Stars in My Eyes, which is a collection of movie-based poetry, which I remember quite fondly, although my last reading of it didn't quite work out for me. And also have a selected collection of his poetry, Counting Myself Lucky, poems 1963 to 1992, which are okay. Although my recent reread of it was not as good as my first one. This is Hit Off and Split by Nikki Finney, another collection of poetry, which I'm not too fond of. Returning to the 10 contemporary classics I Must Still Redeem, this is Everything is Illuminated by Jonathan Safran Foer, which needs to get out of my library. I don't like it at all. The next two are more poetry by Alice Furman. This is an early collection of hers, The View from Saturn, which I really love. It is great. And also have, I think this is not her most recent, because she had a selected collection come out late last year or early this year, which I plan to pick up with LSU's next sale. But this is Bloodweather, which is also quite good. And next is the first collection of Greek mythology that I have, Mythos by Stephen Fry. So this one focuses on the gods, which is why I only have this one, because when it comes to Greek mythology, I only really like the stories of the gods, or that's my favorite part. I also have a bind-up of the Foresight Saga by John Galsworthy, which I've never actually read this edition. I've read the first book in the trilogy, or however many volumes or books there are in this trilogy, and quite liked it and wanted the whole thing, but I've never actually gotten around to reading it. Which I really ought to do for some May of the Moderns, assuming May of the Moderns is still a thing. Next is Soul Mountain by Gao Xingjian. So I had this back when I was a teenager in the early 2000s, and had to go at it. It didn't quite work out, and then I picked it back up because I had an obsession with the Nobel Prizes last year or the year before, and I made some progress, but I ultimately decided to bail on it again. So I don't think I'm actually going to keep it in the long run. We shall see though. And finally, I end this shelf with more poetry, The River Twice by Kathleen Graeber, which is one that I'm not particularly fond of. So that concludes part 2 of the literature section of my collection. So in BookTube, I will be back with part 3 real soon. So until then, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.